What is your communication pattern like when you are in the overwhelm, when you are in your trauma place? So maybe you've gotten triggered by a situation, or maybe you've overdone it physically and then also had this emotional hit where you had that immediate twisting of your gut and your stomach, and now you're at that place where it just has felt too much. You're back in those old familiar patterns that it feels just like no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you can't get out of this rut. What is your communication pattern like? Usually what we see happening is that a person is in their trauma place, and so they are so far out of their prefrontal cortex, logical reasoning part of their brain, that their communication becomes more emotional, but they don't realize it. And so they're trying to communicate with others. Maybe they're trying to communicate with a close friend, a significant other, or somebody that's really important to them, and they're trying to communicate what's going on or what they need, but they're coming from so much of a trauma place in the moment that it's coming out very chaotic, very desperate, and it's giving the wrong message to the other person. So when we are coming from a trauma place, or when we are talking to somebody who's in their trauma place, communication needs to be really simplified in order for it to be effective communication. When you're talking with a child who is what we call dysregulated, so they're acting out, they're having a meltdown, they can't keep control of themselves, or maybe we're talking about an adult, because sometimes adults, when they go into their trauma place, that's where they go, right? Like they're out of control emotionally. They can't seem to calm themselves down, and so they're just spiraling emotionally out of control. And some are acting out with different behaviors. Have you tried to communicate with them in a logical, let's make sense of this, this is obviously what you need to do, why can't you just do this? Have you ever tried to communicate that way? It doesn't go very well, because they cannot listen to that, they cannot hear that when they are in their trauma place. And so whether it's us that's in the trauma place and we're trying to communicate and it's coming out jumbled out, and we don't seem to be able to find the words that expresses exactly what's going on for us and exactly what we need. We may not even know what we really need. Or if we are trying to communicate with somebody, maybe our child, maybe our spouse, and they're in the trauma place, what I find works is to just really simplify the communication. Really simplify it. And by that, I mean say as few words as possible and really say what you mean. So let's take the example of a child. When I'm working with a child and they are in their trauma place, dysregulated, they're not hearing much of what I say. If I say anything longer than one sentence, it just passes right over their head. So I have to make my words be very straight to the point if I'm going to keep their attention and actually get those words into their brain. So I'm going to say things like, I want you to come here. Very short, very simple, and yet it's very clear on exactly what I want from them. Same thing when we are in our trauma place. As we do more of our trauma work and we get more familiar, more aware of what our needs are, we can say those types of communication sentences in a short, sweet, simple way that will help us and help the other person know what they are to do in the situation. So, for example, sometimes when I have gone into my freeze, I just need some space. I need some space to process what has happened and just give my system more time, and then it will be able to come out of the freeze and handle it. So knowing that I just need time and space, I may tell people, I need you to just be quiet. And that way, I don't have to try to communicate all that's going on in my brain, what triggered me, why I think it triggered me, because in that moment, like, that is not the time to have those kinds of conversations. In the moment, I just need to give my body time and space, let it process it. I know that it will do this, and then I can have the more in-depth conversations. But while we are in the trauma place, while anybody is in the trauma place, we need to really simplify the communication and make it super clear so that we can get out of that trauma place back to a place of better flow in our brain, better communication, more logic, more reasoning, and be able to reconnect with ourselves, with others, that the trauma will kind of take away from us, right? Trauma disconnects us, and we see that in our communication patterns. And so when we can become super aware of what we need, or if we are a parent, become super aware of what our child needs in order to come back into a place of regulation, self-control, then we can have those more in-depth conversations of what happened? Why did that happen? What can I do differently next time to have a different result? And where do we go from here? But while we're in the trauma place, or while another person is in the trauma place, keep the communication super short, very, very straight to the point, and then just allow the time and space for that to process and for them to regulate, or you to regulate. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this will change some of your patterns of communication while you or your loved one, your child, is in the trauma place, and be able to then have more confidence when this happens to know actually what to do and how to communicate better with people. I'm Dr. Aimie, and I'm here to give you as much information as I can about healing yourself or healing your child from attachment trauma.